Joining, oh, there we go. Thank you so much for joining to learn a little bit about what's going on with CKLA in our schools. Just to let you all know, my name is Luci Keesee, and I am a proud Bethel Park graduate. I also am a proud Bethel Park parent. My daughter goes to school here. I have been working for Amplify for the last 3 years after spending 18 years as a teacher. It was one of my missions to get CKLA into our schools because it is what is best for kids, and I'm enjoying it so much, not only as an Amplify employee, but as a parent. So I am happy to always help out and answer questions as they come up. But let's get started and talk about Amplify CKLA. First of all, why the shift into curriculum? Why the shift into a program like CKLA? Well, you all probably feel this at home. When our kids start learning how to read, it feels so good. And as a teacher, that feeling is like magic. However, what we are finding that if we look at science or research, we can really get all kids reading actually much quicker and much deeper when we look at the research. Very excited that Pennsylvania is actually pushing lots of legislation about the science of reading. The first step is that they are going to require all educators to have some training in the science of reading in this research to really get all kids in Pennsylvania there. So, what is the science of reading, right? Well, it's actually just research. It is posted on the screen. However, I'm going to read it to you because I know probably some of us are at practices or making dinner, and that is fine. So, let me tell you what it says. The science of reading is a vast interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. This research has been conducted over the last 5 decades across the world. So this isn't new, right? It's derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages. The science of reading has culminated in a preponderance of evidence to inform how proficient reading and writing develop, why some have difficulty, and how we can most effectively assess and teach, and therefore improve student outcomes through prevention of and intervention for reading difficulties. Like, I know that's a mouthful, but really it's just research, right? On learning how to read. If you want to learn more about it, the Reading League is a great resource to kind of dive into that. So, out of all of that, there's actually two things that I want to hit on today about what this research says. It says that we are born with some innate abilities, while other abilities require explicit instruction and deliberate practice. And as you can probably guess, reading is one of those. And then what it also says, skilled reading actually requires two components: word recognition and language comprehension. So those are the two things we're going to look at through CKLA today. Reminder of that first one, we are born with some innate abilities, right? Like learning to walk, but some require that explicit instruction and deliberate practice. And reading is one of those. Reading is just not going to naturally happen. The work of learning to read is actually quite difficult. So just for all of you out there to know that in our English language, we have about 44 sounds. And for those 44 sounds, there's actually 150 spellings. That's a lot. And it's really a lot when you think of other languages, like when you think of Finnish. In the Finnish language, there is one spelling for each sound. So you can really see the difference there. The sentence I'm going to put on the screen shows you how difficult reading is in English. And I'll read it for you, but as I'm reading it, I want you to think of the spelling IE together. So it says, if you don't believe me, I'll quietly defend my view with this brief sentence. Words don't lie, my friends. You can see just in that one sentence or two, how many different sounds that IE is making. So this is a quick little blurb from Emily Hanford. She's an educational research, and she spoke at a symposium in Pennsylvania about why learning to read is so hard. Give me 1 second to make sure that the sound from the video is going to come through. And Beth, please let me know if it doesn't.
That are wired to read. Learning to read is not a natural process. That's one of the big takeaways from the scientific research on reading. And why aren't we born wired to read? Because reading is kind of new. Human beings invented written language just a few thousand years ago, which is really recently in the course of evolutionary history. So children need to be taught how their written language works. Some children need very little instruction, but some children need quite a lot. So many of you have probably seen this, and you're going to hear from Nancy, or maybe you already did. So this slide was made by Nancy Young, and it compiles estimates from a number of studies, and it shows that about, no one knows for sure, but roughly 40% of kids are going to learn to read no matter how you teach them. So a little bit of instruction and immersion in a literate environment, which is important, that's probably going to do the job for about 40% of kids. But most children, right, more than half, are not going to learn to read well unless they're explicitly taught how their written language works. And some kids are going to need a lot of instruction. So a key thing for everyone to understand is that all kids can benefit from explicit instruction. Even those kids who may not need it to be able to make sense of text can become better readers and better spellers if they're taught how their written language works. That are wired to read, learning to read.
So you can see why kids need to be taught how to read. Now, I am not a neuroscientist, so I'm going to actually just quickly show this brain image and what it looks like and what goes on when we're learning to read. So we can actually naturally identify sounds, right? Like b, a, t, right? We could actually even attach meaning to sounds like that bat. We could think of a baseball bat or bat the animal. We can do that naturally. But if you look at the image of the brain and where that visual cortex is, you're going to notice that it's a little island all by itself, right? So to connect the speech to print, those letters, that's what that explicit and systematic instruction does. That's why that phonics that the kids are doing is so important. It's building the bridge in that brain. Now, if this is fascinating to you, which it really, really is, there's lots of resources you can dive into. There's a podcast called the Science of Reading podcast where Dr. Bruce McCandless, who is a neuroscientist, actually dives into this. He's actually from Pitt, so it's pretty cool when he talks about that. But you have to go all the way back to season 1, episode 12, where he actually goes and looks through brain images while kids are learning how to read in 2 different ways. So really fascinating things. Let's look at that other piece of information that we pulled from that reading league, that science of reading definition, where skilled reading requires 2 components, word recognition and language comprehension. What you see here is known as the simple view of reading. Kids need to recognize words, but they also need language comprehension to make meaning of these words, right? So this is how CKLA is designed. In the middle of the screen here, you're looking at the reading rope that takes that simple view and expands it, right? So in CKLA, in grades kindergarten, first and second, there are 2 parts to the program. The first part aligns to that language comprehension piece. The second part aligns to that foundational skills, that word recognition, all of that great phonics, that explicit and systematic instruction. So we are learning how to read. And then for your knowledge in grades 3, 4, and 5, it becomes one integrated strand where they kind of put everything all together. So CKLA has been built on a foundation of excellence. You are welcome to check out any of these to go ahead and see what has been said about CKLA. Again, looking at that simple view of reading, that intentional design, we're first going to think about that word recognition piece. Now in CKLA, we said that there are 44 sounds, right? Students are explicitly taught those 44 sounds. You can see the images that they will be referring to in their classrooms with those sounds. And then we will go through and attach the spelling to these sounds. So when you kind of look at these sounds like that sound spelled with a Y, those will be explicitly taught to students. We use a sounds first approach where they actually play with those sounds and connect speech to print. So there is that sounds first approach, right? We're attaching the speech to print. We even have handwriting connected to exactly the pieces of the phonics code that we're working on. You're going to then see that spelling is connected to exactly what we're learning, those phonics code, right? Spelling occurs in grades 1 and 2 for all the parents on the call. Then we're going to go through and attach that fluency practice when kids are using our readers. And even within those readers, there's opportunity to comprehension, to talk about what we're reading. And then what's really cool, we're going to connect all of that to what they're writing about. So when they're reading about different critters, they're going to write descriptive paragraph about critters. I want to take a second to talk about the readers or decodables. This may look familiar to some of you when you think about a decodable reader. However, decodables have come a long way since this, right? Our decodables now are really fun and exciting and colorful, and they actually are chapter books. So our kindergartners and are reading chapter books. So are our first and second graders. And what's great is they have reoccurring characters, connected storylines, and plots. So we're going to find out so many things about Sam. Like we're going to find out that Sam's dad is in a jazz band. And what is great about these readers is they are 100% decodable, which means everything our students are seeing in this reader has been already explicitly taught to them in class. So this is intrinsically rewards them for the work that they're doing in class. And it is such a rewarding experience. Here's just a quick visual of the readers for our kindergarten through second graders. You can see the top row is kindergarten, the middle row is first grade, and the last row is second grade. We are enjoying the Cat Bandit at home right now with my daughter. She's in second grade. So it is a really, really fun book. Kids are holding these books in their hand, but they also have access to them in the classroom through the CKLA hub, where they are able to listen to the book aloud. On this hub here, you're going to see a couple different things.
All right, let's jam.
So they're gonna have access to these knowledge builder videos that get them excited about what they're learning about. And then they also have access
Wow.
to hearing the code, watching a little video about it, seeing how it's written, and practicing saying it.
Ow. Mouse. Ow. Mouse.
And then also watching another child make those formations of how they're written. Now, that's just the one piece of it. The other piece is that language comprehension. And this is really, really important to reading comprehension. Natalie Wexler wrote The Knowledge Gap, which is a phenomenal book, and she talks about why this is so important.
This idea that skills and strategies are
Lucy, we lost audio.
what you've got is a real marginalization
Let's see.
of anything but reading and math from the curriculum. But if you look at what cognitive scientists know about how reading comprehension works,
Was that on? Did that start playing? Beth, I'm going to attach that to, why don't we attach that to the email just so that everyone can go ahead and watch it later. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. So as I said, she wrote The Knowledge Gap, which is a great book, but if you love podcasts, I really suggest listening to the Knowledge Matters podcast. And it talks about how when we have a knowledge building curriculum, how that greatly affects our K-2 students, but also as lifelong learners into upper elementary, middle school, high school, and beyond. So what happens when you have a knowledge building curriculum? We actually expose our students in that language arts times to things other than just literature. We expose them to history topics and science topics. And we intentionally build knowledge through the year. So maybe in one unit we're talking about plants and then farms and then seasons and weather, and everything's connected throughout the year. But as you may be able to tell on the screen, everything is connected over the years. So things that we are doing in first grade will come back up in third grade and fourth grade and beyond. Really quickly, when you think about listening comprehension and reading comprehension, they actually don't equal out until age 13. So, what that tells us is that our kids in kindergarten, first, and second grade are capable of comprehending at a much higher level when they are just listening. So that is what happens in the other part of the program. Our students are exposed to these fabulous interactive read alouds. This is an example of first grade when they dive into astronomy. So here our kids are listening to a story and looking at these images at a higher level, right? We're really comprehending some things. And the discussion that we can get from this because of that listening comprehension, we're doing inferential questions and evaluative questions and discussions, and the writing is connected to this. So in this unit, kids are going to keep an astronomy journal and they're going to be writing about what they're listening to. And just to quickly show you third, fourth, and fifth grade, it follows a very similar pattern in that knowledge strand, right? Where kids are exposed to vocabulary and they're listening, but they're also now reading really intense topics and having great discussions. And again, attaching that writing. To talk about writing, it's everywhere within CKLA. It is integrated all throughout, so they don't have a separate writing block. And what the more research we're learning about reading and writing, it's reciprocal. They actually go hand in hand. Now, I know this is from Canon Mac, a neighboring district, right? But they have been using for about a year CKLA, and Dr. Toronto, the assistant superintendent, is ecstatic about the writing results they're seeing. So this comes from third grade. On the left, you see an image of beginning of the year writing, and then you see on the right how much they have improved in that 1 year. So he said before they had a different approach, right? And now they're using a systematic approach where reading and writing go hand in hand. Just so you all know, and maybe you have seen these, there are caregiver letters that come home for kindergarten through second grade. They're in the knowledge strand and also in the skill strand. That's where you'll see the homework, you'll see spelling. There is also a caregiver hub. So if you wanted to go onto this website, and we can put this in the follow-up email or the chat, about, hey, what else do I need to know about Amplify? You can go here. But just be on the lookout for things that come home in your child's folder that say here. So here's an example of some homework. Practice reading these words, right? You'll see spelling words. You'll see what they have read in class. They get to take home and do as a reread with you. The chicken nugget is really fun if you haven't read it. And just to end here, I know we're at time, but just to show you some of the fabulous things that have been happening in Bethel Park with our program. You can see here, first graders at Washington Elementary had a flannels and flapjacks, right? To celebrate the end of their Tall Tales unit. You can see our fabulous teachers here in fourth grade at Ben Franklin getting so excited for their medieval unit. And then over here, you can see Memorial second graders had a Diwali celebration. And then also here, William Penn in third grade, they're playing some cricket. So just really, really cool things are happening and exciting things are happening. I know you may have questions, and that is completely fine. We do have an opportunity for you to fill out this form. I think it's going to be in the chat box or in the follow-up email, where if you have a district-related question or an Amplify question, we are happy to answer those for you. But we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to learn about what's going on in school, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies from CKLA, for being with us and joining us tonight and putting on this presentation. I did just put the Google form, the link to the form for any questions in the chat. We will be moving over to a different session that will start at 6:30. That's going to focus more on the 3 to 5 grade band. So if you have a student in grades 3 to 5 and want to learn more about that grade band specifically, we will be moving over to the other link. We thank you for your time and joining us tonight. I know family time is very precious. We appreciate your collaboration and partnership in your child's education and learning. And we are here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful night.